kind of not only clear the air, but kind of get a handle on certain things. Therefore, at least the final 30 minutes of our podcast here. So just to prepare our brother here on the dashboard, with that, and I just give so much thanks, of course, as always, for his labor of love. But just a shout out to the eye for that particular reason to come here at the initial last 30 minutes or so within the grace period, just to reason a bit on a few of the topics which we, of course, to bring forward. But continuing on, in this sense, our brothers and sisters, just to lay the foundation as far as that is concerned, which we are seeing here on the outset. And as I mentioned, we'll connect the dots a little more for one and kind of give them, a panoramic view of what we are seeing here and how things are particularly playing out on a grander stage, so at least then they'll have as much information as they can so that they can make the assessments needed moving forward. But even so, just moving on to our next topic, of course, we even have a short clip on a recording, for this one as well, but sought to read out our first initial thoughts, of course, and a lot of the referencing and, of course, give a short commentary for one to have that for the record. Just sharing these things with the eye, really, gives us the strength to know that our group or our fellowship or our ones-and-ones who check us out, whether they be here on the call or we're here to forward from the recording, are put in a position that they can make a fully informed decision. Really, we take, just to say in a mundane sense, we take pride in that. We definitely seek to give ones as much information as possible so that they, are not beheld by anything that we, of course, already have within our own minds that we think for ourselves. And we hope, and pray that ones would do so also for themselves. But even so, with our next topic, of course, that we are looking to bring forward here, we had mentioned so many times before to keep an eye out on many of the referendums that, of course, would happen all across Europe, but also the election that would take place, especially on the African continent, there in Latin America, as well as the Caribbean. But to the African continent, as we mentioned earlier this year, of course, with Angola, South Africa at a certain political state, Kenya, of course, at a particular helm in which Uhuru Kenyatta, of course, has emerged again as the president of Kenya. We again go to the country in the west known as Liberia. And, of course, we have made our own comments from certain time to time and, given certain commentary to a certain extent, we still seek for the progression of those there in Liberia and those in the diaspora to keep eyes out on certain things such as these. And, of course, send our love and also, our support for certain ones there. But even so here, just keeping to the current news and the current events, George Weah, presidential candidate, has been elected there in the Liberian West African country in the first transfer of power in 73 years, the first successful transfer of power. No bloodshed in this, just a complete process as though ones would see fit in the political structure, of course, which has been put into place since its inception. And, not to bring in any of our own personal thoughts, our personal ideas on this, but again, to extend an olive branch, as they would say, quote unquote. But, and of course, giving our support for newly elected President George Weah, former football star of what they would call the PSG football club, or PSG, of course, standing for Paris Saint-Germain, there in Paris, of the country of France, which this former football elite star, we would say, has become a political figure and revered one, as we would see and have followed this particular story from such a time. And much of the support of the people definitely has come to a helm for President Weah at this time, President-elect Weah, and we definitely have found much interesting information just coming forward to our podcast before checking out certain things. And, of course, the Liberian election process was a very interesting one, just to say the least on that sense, which ones, of course, would find out if they do a little research, because mainly the final two candidates that came forward at this particular time before, just yesterday and the day before, there came to a runoff between Mr. Weah and a former administration member, the vice president, if I'm not mistaken. One's, of course, can do research for themselves. And his name escapes me at this particular moment as we were following the story and keep it up with many of the other elections around the continent and many other places as well. But former administration member, we were almost sure that it was the former vice president to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who, of course, has been held, I guess you can say, as a transitional president, but a very formidable woman that we had definitely watched over the years and, just kind of admired from certain aspects from afar. And again, just putting certain things into place, we again hail Liberia for much of what has transpired at this particular time, showing the first initial election process since its inception, and showing no rampage, no hiccups. Well, a few hiccups here and there, but again, still a very, very young nation as far as bringing this together, and this is a great achievement, just to say the least, bringing our political process and seeing it all the way up into its fruition. It definitely brought out lots of thoughts within I, and again, just assessing it from afar. But even so, this particular article, before we actually get into our recording, which we have set here for this evening, this article, of course, and many other articles spoken out, the media news networks, the BBC, Reuters, many other ones speaking up on this particular issue and showing certain interest to get certain information out, so the ones, of course, could share this and have it for themselves and assess for themselves. But even so, this are coming from Ghana Web via Reuters. Former soccer star George Weah has defeated Vice President Joseph Boakai. Joseph Boakai, that's the name that we, of course, thought to bring forward to the eye. So if we could wing it a bit, but wanted to be sure that we got the former Vice President's name correct. But here, to win Liberia's presidential runoff election with 61.5% of the vote based on 98.1% of ballots cast. The Election Commission said on Thursday, Weah will succeed incumbent President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf next month in what will be Liberia's first democratic transition since 1944. Weah supporters paraded through the streets of the capital, Monrovia, and honked car horns to celebrate the news. Weah grew up in Claratown slum in Monrovia and went on to star for AC Milan and PSG Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea, all football clubs, to become the only African to win the FIFA World Player of the Year. His rags to riches story helped him tap into dissatisfaction with Johnson Sirleaf's 12-year tenure, which drew a line under years of civil war, but was criticized for failing to root out elite corruption or persistent poverty. Turnout for the second round stood at 56%. The NEC, or the National Election Committee Chairman, Jerome Kotakoya, told reporters in Monrovia. Liberia is Africa's oldest modern republic and was founded by freed U.S. slaves in 1847. Of course, we have our gripe with that particular topic and that particular sentence there, but we hold and reserve our comments for further examination. Its last democratic transfer of power occurred in 1944 and was followed by a military coup in 1980 and a 14-year civil war that ended only in 2003. The U.S. base said there were, quote, notable improvements, unquote, in the handling of Tuesday's vote from the first round in October, echoing positive assessments from other international observers. Of course, that ends our article here from GhanaWeb.com via Reuters. But again, we won't read too much into a lot of what has transpired with the election process there in Liberia, leaving it as a shining example for this past year, of course, with many of the electoral processes that have come to a helm, as we had mentioned, for ones to, of course, put on their calendars, put in their notes, and to keep watch upon. But leaving that
I can't wait until we get back to Zion. Rastafari is still to the